Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Today I'm going to be translating Bashir Badr's second poem for my channel. It is also a very famous poem that some of you might have heard already, but I wanted to translate it here for you verbatim. And once again, it's about love and passion, topics that Bashir Badr, who's a famous poet in India and Pakistan and many parts of the world. So this particular poem is titled Ankoh mein raha, dil mein uttar kar nahi dekha. Ankoh mein raha, dil mein uttar kar nahi dekha. It is the title of the poem, and it is also the first verse in this poem. So let's look at that first line and title. Aankhon mein raha, dil mein utar kar nahi dekha. So once again, this is about love and passion and obsession. It's about somebody who's obsessed with another human being, but this other human being is not reciprocating the love back. Ankoh means eyes. So my loved one is inside my eyes, but this loved one hasn't stepped down into my heart. So this person is an object of obsession, but has not returned the gaze, has not reciprocated this love and obsession. My love remained in my gaze, but never in my heart. Could be a way to translate that first line. Let's move on to the next line. कश्ती के मुसाफिर ने समंदर नहीं देखा. कश्ती के मुसाफिर ने समंदर नहीं देखा. It is almost as if one is in a boat passage and has never seen the ocean. How impossible is that? Imagine taking a trip on a ship and never seeing the ocean. And that's what it feels like. It feels existential. I'm so obsessed with you. I love you. I think about you all the time. But you have no thoughts of me at all. How could that be? How could our love and obsession just be one direction? So these first two lines, let's read them and translate them again. My love remained in my gaze, but never in my heart, like travelers on a ship who never see the ocean. I'm sure many of us have felt that kind of love as well. Here's the next two lines. बेवक्त अगर जाऊं सब चौंक पड़ेंगे. बेवक्त अगर जाऊं सब चौंक पड़ेंगे. एक उम्र हुए दिन में कभी घर नहीं देखता. घर नहीं देखा. So let's correct. Let me say that one more time. बेवक्त अगर जाऊं सब चौंक पड़ेंगे. एक उम्र हुई दिन कभी घर नहीं देखा. So once again, it's obsession, but it's a different landscape now. And the direct translation of that first line, if I leave suddenly, bewakt means suddenly. If I leave suddenly now, this passion, this love, everything will become unsettled. If I do not go past your home each day, it feels like a lifetime. So I'm in love with you, I'm obsessed with you, but at the same time, like I need to cut these ties. But at the same time, if I'm not in obsession with you, it just feels unholy to me, unreal. Like who would I be if I wasn't obsessed with you? And here, this last line is a very common, the second line in this verse is very common motif that you'll see in many Urdu poetry. And it goes back to this idea of, walking past somebody's window, somebody you're obsessed with, because you can't have direct eye-to-eyes gaze in countries like India and Pakistan, where, the gaze is pretty much still forbidden, especially the gaze of a woman that you love and are obsessed with. Just then say, I'm sorry, let's go back to that last line. Ek umar hui दिन में कभी घर नहीं देखा. So the argument here is that it's been a lifetime, right? Since it feels like a lifetime since I've walked past your house. And once again, thinking about obsessiveness here, thinking about stalking people, thinking about walking past. Here in America, we would call it stalking, but in South Asia, it would be love, right? An obsession. And I remember even my father and his story of wanting to marry my mother, but not being allowed to see her. We came from a pretty traditional Muslim family in Hyderabad, India. And he wanted to marry my mother, and my grandfather had agreed to the marriage, but he forbade him to look upon my mother before the marriage. And so my father did exactly what this man is doing in this poem. He walked past my mother's home several times, hoping to catch a glance of her, right? This woman he's about to marry. So instead, what happens is my mom's cousin, who was a friend of my father, went inside the home and pulled out my mom's younger brother and said, basically, she kind of looks like him. And so my father was satisfied with that, since my mama, or my mom's younger brother, is quite handsome. And they went ahead and had their Indian wedding and had not met each other until their wedding day. And the imam had put a mirror on the floor, and they were able to view each other through this mirrored gaze, this image in the mirror, before then they actually met eyes physically. So all of these traditions that are caught in this beautiful poem. Let's go on to the next verse. आंखों ने कभी मील का पत्थर नहीं देखा. आंखों ने कभी मील का पत्थर नहीं देखा. वे फूल मुझे कोई विरासत में मिले हैं. So this line right here, Ankoh means eyes again. Ne kabhi meel ka patthar. Meel ka patthar is literally translated as milestone, right? I have never seen these milestones myself. I've never observed them. Just as if observing flowers, right? So this can be translated into this next line. The day I walked out onto the street in pursuit of my love, I never saw the mile-long stone barrier before me. That's one way to translate that verse. But if you go back and do more of a direct translation, let's go back and do some direct translation of those last two lines in that third verse. आंखों ने कभी मील का पत्थर नहीं देखा. My eyes have never seen the milestone myself. And then the next line goes like this. वे फूल is flowers. मुझे कोई विरासत में मिले हैं. वे फूल, these flowers I received as a promise from someone, right? So thinking about this idea of, your betrothed giving you flowers as a way of indicating that perhaps there is love there, right? So that's one way to look at it. So it's really about the pursuit of love. It's about these milestones that you have in your love story, and how this person is obsessed with this person, but has never really, had those kinds of milestones in their relationship per se. So once again, these are my translations of these. So I'm sure there's variations as to how people read into these lines. Let's look at the next two lines in the fourth verse. तुमने मेरा कांटों भरा बिस्तर नहीं देखा. तुमने मेरा कांटों भरा बिस्तर नहीं देखा. Let me say that again, please. तुमने मेरा कांटों भरा बिस्तर नहीं देखा. Let's do direct translation of this one. तुमने, so he's referring to you. He's referring to his lover. You have never seen my bed full of thorns. So mera kanton bhara bistar. Mera is mine, kanton is thorns. Bhara means full, and bistar means bed. You have never seen my bed full of thorns, right? Tumne nahi dekha, you've never seen it. The next line goes like this. Faron ki mohabbat ke yakin kar liya maine. यारों के मोहब्बत का यकीन कर लिया मैंने. So yaron is your friends, right? Yaron ki mohabbat kya yakin kar liya maine. So he's referring to the love stories of perhaps his friends, his colleagues, his peers, and their love stories, right? He's come to believe that there is such thing as love because he's heard these stories from his friends about their love pursuits and how those stories unfolded, and can't figure out why there are so many thorns in his own love story. So one way to translate is mired in, so mired in the trust of my dear friends, right? Hearing their stories of love and so on. And then the next line is this: फूलों में छुपा के फूलों में छुपाया हुआ खंजर नहीं देखा. So let's read that one more time. फूलों में छुपाया हुआ खंजर नहीं देखा. फूलों में, so फूलों and flowers. So within these flowers, I didn't see the knife that was hidden. फूलों में, inside these flowers, छुपाया हुआ, somebody has left or hidden this knife. The knife here is being translated as khanjar, nahi dekha. Now, is he saying that he did not see this knife hidden in these flowers, or is he talking about his loved one not seeing this knife hidden in these flowers? But it's really getting at that kind of antithetical image, right? You have flowers indicating beauty and love, and then you've got this knife indicating revenge and evil and fear. And maybe it's his own self-awareness of, oh my God, I'm in love with this person. Yet it's kind of haunting and tragic and fearful, and I'm kind of scared of maybe what violence it could lead to. It's another way to interpret this, right? So, फूलों में छुपाया हुआ खंजर नहीं देखा. But based on this grammatical sense, I would guess this is looking at somebody has hidden that knife inside those flowers, right? And the author here, the poet, is unaware of the fact that even within love, there could be hatred and fear and anger and revenge and all the stories about love and hate, right, that come to your mind when you hear that line. Let's go on to the next verse. महबूब का घर हो कि बुजुर्गों की जमीनें. महबूब का घर हो कि बुजुर्गों की जमीनें. So the first part of this is one of my favorite lines in the poem. Mehboob ka ghar, whether it is the house of your lover. Mehboob ka ghar ho, whether it is the house of your lover. Here I would say in Hyderabad, we would say ya. Here the poet is using ki. Buzargon ki zamine. Whether it is the home of your lover or the cemetery where your ancestors are buried. So buzargon means your ancestors. Ki zamine, right? Or it could be ancestral land. I think that's the best way to translate that. Whether it is your lover's home or your ancestral land, जो छोड़ दिया फिर उसे मुड़कर नहीं देखा. जो छोड़ दिया फिर उसे मुड़ के नहीं देखा. मुड़कर नहीं देखा. So leave it alone, man. Turn away from it. Don't look at it. So once you've left it, don't go back and turn to look at it again, right? Don't gaze back upon your lover's home, just as you don't want to gaze back upon the ancestral home that you had forsaken. This goes back to my own family's history. My father grew up in Malampet outside of Hyderabad and owned his whole family, all 18 some children, owned a mango farm. And this was their ancestral land. And once he had migrated to the United States, he was kind of cut off from his ancestral land, although he was one of a few male heirs within those 18 children. And I remember my mother said, hey, you've immigrated to the United States. You can't look back on your ancestral land. That land is now your sisters who live there in India, right? So don't gaze back upon your ancestral land. You forsake it. So you've forsaken that land. So don't go back and look back upon it and feel a sense of emotional tie or hatred towards that transaction that occurred, that which led to you losing your ancestral land. So just like, your ancestral land, turn away from your lover's home. Don't go back and look at it again. Move on, right? Let's go on to the next verse. खत ऐसा लिखा कि निगाहें से जड़ा है. खत ऐसा लिखा है कि निगाहें से जड़ा है. वो हाथ की जिसने कोई जेवर नहीं देखा. So let's look at that kind of interesting coupling of lines there. So he's talking about this letter, right? That's gone unnoticed, that he's written for his lover. It's gone unnoticed, just like jewelry goes unnoticed on someone's hand, which seems once again ironic, right? So once again, let's go back to look at that line carefully. खत ऐसा लिखा है. खत ऐसा लिखा है. I've just written you this letter. कि निगाहों से जड़ा है. Nigaho here, he's talking about the gaze again. Nigaho se jada hai. I've written you this letter that is kind of my gaze to you, right? It's connected. Jada hai means it's connected to this gaze. And that perhaps my letter, my love letter, speaks more about my obsession with you than anything else. वो हाथ कि जिसने कोई जेवर नहीं देखा. It's almost as if a hand that's never been adorned with jewelry, right? In a place like India, thinking about a woman who's never worn jewelry, like it's just extreme poverty, extreme depravity, right? And so he's talking about his own depravity. Like I've written you this letter that's just full of the gaze that I have upon you. But it goes unnoticed, it goes unnoticed, just as the hand of a woman who's not wearing jewelry goes unnoticed, right? So you wear jewelry so people notice your, attire, they notice that your rings, your bracelets, and they give you attention, right? They draw attention to you. And so once again, I've written you this letter, but yet it doesn't draw your attention. What's going on here, right? So let's look at this last verse in this wonderful poem. पत्थर मुझे कहते हैं मेरे छाने वाले. पत्थर मुझे कहते हैं मेरे छाने वाले. People call me a stone. People who adore me. मेरे छाने वाले, like the people who like me, adore me, call me a hardened stone. So he's talking about perhaps his loneliness, even though perhaps maybe he's a famous poem and he's received recognition among his peers, he still feels that kind of stone cold-heartedness in this world. And perhaps others see him as this stone cold poet, right? And here's the very last line. मैं मोम हूँ. मैं मोम हूँ. I'm like the wax at the bottom of the candle. मैं मोम हूँ. Moam here is leading to candle or the wax from a candle. मैं मोम हूँ. उसने मुझे छूकर नहीं देखा. I am this light that's on fire, that's ablaze. But my lover has not even tried to touch me, hasn't come near me. I'm this burning flame. I'm so passionate about my love. Yet my lover does not even notice me, doesn't recognize me, doesn't give me any attention. Right? So there's a bit of loneliness there at the end of this wonderful poem. I go untouched, I go unnoticed. Even though I'm adorned by many, I live in this very kind of cold-hearted loneliness. That's my translation of Bashir Badr's very famous poem, Ankoh mein raha, dil mein utthar kar nahi dekha. Talking about love and obsession. And I hope you enjoyed this translation. Thank you.